Before we get into today's edition of Just the Truth, let me tell you about the latest special from Mike Lindell at MyPillow. The standard MyPillow, normally $49.98 for a limited time only, just $14.88 with promo code Joey. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio listener specials, and see all the specials. There's a limited quantity of just 10 at this special price. That's $14.88 with promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome into today's show, and let me just up front apologize a bit for my voice. I've been out a good bit the last few days in this pretty weather, and I guess maybe allergy season is already starting. I've just been really stopped up and sniffles, so I apologize for my voice. Here's what we're going to cover today. A watchdog group is asking the Senate Ethics Committee to investigate Democrat Senator Sheldon Whitehouse and the millions of dollars of payments to organizations that his wife works for. Funny how that works. And you know things are bad for the Democrats when even their own billionaire donors are admitting that they can't sell their own ideas. We have a story making the rounds on one of Kamala Harris's biggest supporters now admitting that the Democrats are failing miserably. And Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is ending the use of the controversial CBP One app to allow migrants to board domestic flights, with one exception, unless it's being used for their self-deportation. And finally, a federal employee tells CNN that she was absolutely infuriated by the Doe's email asking her what she did last week for her federal paycheck. Government workers at all levels are pushing back on the idea that they owe their employer, this case, the federal government, an explanation of what they do to earn their paycheck.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Another day, another potentially Democrat caught red-handed raking in millions from legislation they pushed through Congress. This time it's Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, the Rhode Island climate zealot, who's under fire for voting to fund his own wife's environmental nonprofits. That's right. This is a textbook corruption, and if Whitehouse had an R next to his name instead of a D, the media would be screaming for investigations, impeachment, and resignations. Not in this case, though, because he's a Democrat. So here's what we know. Sheldon Whitehouse voted for legislation that sent millions of dollars in federal grants to the Ocean Conservancy. This is a left-wing environmental group that, surprise, has paid his wife over $2.6 million in consulting fees. And just this past year, they received a $5.2 million grant from NOAA and another $1.7 million from the EPA, both of which were funded by bills that Senator Whitehouse himself supported. Since 2008, Ocean Conservancy has pulled in over $14.2 million in federal funding, while Mrs. Whitehouse has been on their payroll. Now, oftentimes, you guys text me, you email me, you call me, you question how men and women who serve in the U.S. Senate and serve in the U.S. Congress make $175,000, $200,000 a year, but yet they're worth millions of dollars. Maybe this is how it works. Maybe this is how it happens. Now, tell me this doesn't stink to high heaven. The watchdog group FACT, Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust, is demanding a full-blown ethics investigation, and rightly so. This isn't some coincidence. Whitehouse is a senior member of the Senate's Environment and Public Works Committee. He co-founded the Senate's Oceans Caucus. The guy has been pushing these laws, championing these causes, and shockingly, his wife's organization just keeps on getting richer at our expense. And what do we hear from Whitehouse himself? Crickets. Nothing. Not a word. No defense. No explanation. Just complete radio silence. And, of course, his left-wing buddies in the media are running to cover him, acting like this is just a coincidence. But let's be real, folks. If this were a Republican, MSNBC, Not Joy Reid anymore because she's out. CNN, they would already be demanding jail time. And guess what? When Ocean Conservancy was asked about this, their vice president of external affairs jumped in with the classic D.C. swamp talk, saying that there was a competitive, independent selection process and that White House wife didn't directly get paid from those federal grants. Yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, you buying that? Really? So we're supposed to believe that a senator votes for a bill, millions of dollars go to his wife's organization, but somehow that's not a conflict of interest. That's okay. Really? And let's not forget here either. This is the same Sheldon Whitehouse who loves lecturing us about dark money. He hates dark money in politics and corporate corruption. Meanwhile, he's funneling millions into his wife's nonprofit and getting a fat paycheck for the family. Sound like the Bidens? Sound like he's taking a sheet out of the Biden playbook? Folks, this is corruption, plain and simple. If, in fact, his wife's nonprofit received this money and she was paid a salary, they can argue all they want to that she wasn't directly paid for this, but if she was on their payroll and they got this money from the federal government because of her husband, that is a conflict of interest. And let's be clear, Republicans need to push for a full Senate ethics investigation. No excuses, no delays. The American people, you and me, deserve answers. And if this guy is using taxpayer dollars to enrich his own family, he has to be held accountable. Am I missing something here? Email me, joe@joeyhudson.com. In other Democrat news, you know things are bad for the Democrats when even their own billionaire donors are admitting they can't sell their own ideas. And that's what's happening with Mark Cuban, the former Kamala Harris superfan, one of the biggest Democrat cheerleaders in 2024. He just went on the record saying that Trump is a marketing genius and that Democrats have no idea what they're doing. I mean, we've been saying this for years, right? We knew that. We didn't need Mark Cuban to tell us that. But now, even their own people are saying this. Cuban was at some left-wing summit in D.C. He is trying to make sense of why the Democrats got steamrolled in 2024. And his comments were brutal. He flat out admitted Democrats can't sell worth you know what. Wow, you don't say, Mark Cuban. I mean, this is the party that tries to tell us the economy is doing great while Americans can barely afford groceries. You remember how Joe Biden kept talking about all the jobs he created and how the Bidenomics were working? Yeah, that the border was secure while millions of illegals poured in, that crime really isn't a problem while cities were being overrun by violent criminals, and they wonder why no one else is buying their garbage. Cuban is right, and Cuban goes even further. He compares Trump's ability to sell his message to Paris Hilton and Dennis Rodman, saying Trump is the best marketer he's ever seen, and he's right on that too, isn't he? Look, it's real simple. Trump knows how to speak to the American people. He speaks our language. He doesn't waste time on focus group, the bureaucratic nonsense or phony political jargon. He tells it like it is, and people respond because he understands the struggles of the average American, even though he's a billionaire himself. Meanwhile, Cuban completely destroys his own party, saying that if you gave the Democrats a $1 bill and told them to sell it for 50 cents, they'd hire 50 consultants and still screw it up. And he's right there, isn't he? That's funny, but it's true, 100% true. Here's the best part. Cuban, this big-time Harris surrogate, basically admitted that he ignored her campaign's messaging because it was so bad. He straight up told them, "You're not allowed to say a word to me. I don't care what you think." Now, that's the kind of dysfunction that we're dealing with, or that the Democrats are dealing with. I shouldn't say we. Even their own people think that their messaging was a disaster. And then Cuban, of course, tries to save face, saying Trump is still in the, quote, salesmanship stage and now has to execute on his policies. Well, guess what, Mr. Cuban? He's executing. Have you not paid attention to the headlines the past few weeks? Did Mark Cuban miss the part where Trump also proved that he can execute in his first term? The economy was booming. The border was then secure. America was respected on the world stage. That's called execution, Mr. Cuban. And now, with Trump back in office, we're going to get to see it again. for sure. Your texts are welcome, as are your emails, joey@joeyhudson.com, and you can always leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Always use promo code Joey when you go to MyPillow.com and place your order, and you'll receive the very best discounts on any of the products. MyPillow is excited to announce that they're having the first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98, kings only $69.98. They sell out fast, so go to MyPillow.com right now and place your order. Save 30% on the brand new crosses. You know the cross that you see Michael and Dale wearing all the time? You can have your very own at 30% off. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the U.S. Go to MyPillow.com, use promo code Joey. Get the 2025 six-piece towel sets. You hear me talking all the time about how I love MyPillow towels. $29.98, MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. And guess what? Every order ships absolutely free right now. MyPillow.com, promo code Joey.
There's a lot of talk about making America great again, and it begins with making America healthy again. Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team at PhD Weight Loss are at the forefront to educate and guide you to be your best self. The millions being spent in propping up Big Pharma are astounding, only to create long-term dependency and harmful side effects. Let's take a natural approach that isn't connected to a pharmaceutical company's bottom line. The coaches at PhD Weight Loss will show you how. The entire program is centered around science and nutrition, a proven roadmap that has helped over 8,000 clients lose over 331,000 pounds. You'll learn what to eat and when, how to quiet cravings, and finally get rid of that belly fat. Plus, you'll never take a medication. How many pounds would you like to lose in 2025? Do it the natural way with PhD Weight Loss, here to lead the charge to make America healthy again. Call PhD Weight Loss and schedule your consultation. 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900, or go to myphdweightloss.com.
We continue to see big things coming out of the Department of Homeland Security and the various agencies tasked with securing the southern border. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is making it crystal clear. If you're in the country illegally, you're going to be caught and you're going to be deported.
If you try to enter illegally, you will be caught. You will be removed, and you will never return. Follow the law, and you'll find opportunity. If you break it, you'll find consequences.
That's in a new ad just released that will be airing in multiple locations. I suspect, too, that spot will be sent out on social media, knowing that people in Mexico and in South America and all will be able to see that, too. It's a clear message that you don't want to try coming across our border illegally. Now, Secretary Noem also took some other major steps, too, and this is a major setback to illegals. She announced that the days of illegals jetting freely around America are over. Now, I'm not sure I completely understood how this worked. Secretary Noem has ended the disastrous Biden-era policy of allowing illegal migrants to fly domestically using the controversial CBP One app. Now, you know, you'll recall President Trump, in an executive order on day one, eliminated the use of that app. He basically practically closed it down. This was an app that Biden twisted into his own personal Open Borders Express. And now under Trump, illegals will no longer be allowed to board U.S. flights unless they're flying straight out of America through self-deportation. Let's remember what Biden did here. He took an app that was originally created to streamline cargo inspections and turned it into a fast pass to America, allowing illegal aliens to bypass the law, get paroled into our country, and travel freely without legitimate identification. If any of you have traveled on airlines in recent years, you know that you cannot get on an airplane without a photo ID, period. You got to have your ID. No way around it. You're not even going to get into the airport without your photo ID. Well, evidently, illegals, if they had this CBP app, they could show that app and use it as their identification to get on a flight. I never knew that until now. Secretary Noem says enough is enough. No longer will migrants use this app to bypass TSA security or manipulate our system to stay indefinitely? Now, the rule is very simple. No valid ID, no flight. Unless, of course, she says, you're on your way home. She'll let you get on then if it's a one-way ticket to wherever you came from. That's fair, isn't it? And there's more. President Trump and Secretary Noem aren't stopping there. They paused parole applications, allowed ICE to cancel the parole status of migrants who've been exploiting our broken system, and they've even deputized hundreds of State Department officials to help enforce our immigration laws. They're serious about this, folks. 600 new immigration enforcement deputies to finally help uphold our laws. Imagine that, actually enforcing immigration laws instead of just ignoring them the way Joe Biden's administration did. And let's be clear, what does this mean? No more illegals boarding planes without proper ID. They can't use that app anymore. And by the way, the app, all they had to do was create a user on the profile on that app, upload a photo, and that served as their ID. We still don't really know if it was who they say they were because they're the ones who set it up. They're the ones who were uploading the photo. Also, no more Biden-style mass parole into our communities. No more criminals being released into our communities. And no more letting migrants roam freely across state lines at your expense, my expense. And remember, this follows the Trump administration's recent decision to reverse Biden's reckless TPS extensions for Haitians and those from Venezuela as well. President Trump, Secretary Noem are still systematically dismantling Biden's radical open borders disaster piece by piece, and they're doing it at breakneck speed. Folks, this is what leadership looks like. This is what the American people voted for. It's the secure border that you demanded, and it's starting to happen. Under Trump, our borders are getting secure, our immigration laws are enforced, and America is putting Americans first. Now, the state of Massachusetts and Boston in particular are kind of under a microscope now. And it's no secret that they've been defiant. It's no secret that they've said up front, we are not going to abide by the Trump administration's mandates. Well, a woke Boston politician who was talking tough on immigration was fact-checked. Now she's scrambling to walk it back. Boston City Councilwoman Sharon Durkin thought that she could mock border czar Tom Homan, a man who has spent decades protecting this country, because according to her, he only, quote, policed a town smaller than a Fenway Park crowd. She's making light of him, making fun of his history. Well, that didn't age well, because guess what? Homan was a Border Patrol agent, a top ICE official, and served under multiple administrations, including Barack Obama. He's the guy who put real criminals behind bars, not some desk jockey bureaucrat. And the second she got called out, what did she do? She backtracked fast. Durkin rushed to put out a statement saying, I understand that Tom Homan spent his career as a federal agent within Border Patrol and ICE. Oh, you understand, huh? After you got caught running your mouth without knowing the facts, huh? Here's the reality, folks. Boston is a sanctuary city. They protect illegal immigrants, including child predators and violent criminals, while turning their backs on law-abiding American citizens. Tom Homan called them out at CPAC. This is what prompted this. Over the weekend, he was one of the featured speakers. He did it with facts. He pointed out that Boston PD let at least 9 child rapists walk free rather than turn them over to ICE because they simply want to defy Donald Trump's administration. Think about that. Let that sink in. At least 9 child rapists, known rapists, were released onto the streets of Boston rather than turn them over to ICE. And how does Boston Police Commissioner Michael Cox respond? By hiding behind state law and refusing to cooperate with federal immigration enforcement. And Homan didn't hold back. He said, I'm coming to Boston, and I'm bringing hell with me. That's what prompted this whole pushback, because he stood them in the eye at CPAC in front of an enthusiastic crowd of patriots and said, I'm going to do my job. Because unlike Boston's woke city officials, Homan actually cares about public safety. He's going to make sure that you and I are safe from these bunch of thieves who have snuck into our country. We're getting more feedback from federal employees who received an email from Elon Musk asking them to justify their jobs. As we reported to you yesterday and over the weekend, Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, sent out an email to all federal employees, a very simple, reasonable request. Tell us what you did last week, show us what taxpayers are paying for, and be accountable. It's very simple. And what happened? The government bureaucrats literally lost their minds. We got federal employees, M.T. Snyder, for example, a field examiner for the National Labor Relations Board, going on CNN, of course, and whining about how this basic accountability measure is actually a threat and a coercion tactic from Elon Musk. Here she is.
First, just tell us about this email and what it was like receiving it and what you all have talked about after getting it.
Sure. I got this email Saturday afternoon, about 3 p.m., and I felt absolutely infuriated getting this email with a demand within 48 hours to provide a response on what I did within the last week or face termination. This is clearly an attempt from Elon Musk to harass and bully and intimidate the federal workforce, which is part of his broader plan to gut the federal workforce and privatize public sector services to ensure that corporations like his own can get more profit.
Do you want this woman working in our federal government? Is she just a complete idiot going on national TV complaining that she was asked to tell us what she did last week? Are you kidding me? This woman is outraged. And why? Because she was asked to justify her taxpayer-funded job, plain and simple. She says, and I quote, "I felt absolutely infuriated getting this mail with a demand within 48 hours to provide a response. And what I did within the last week or face termination." Well, you do have a job, right? The American people are paying you for that job. In the real world, where the rest of us live, people have to show results. We answer to our employer. If you work in any private sector job, guess what? You have to prove your value. You have to give reports on your work, and you're held accountable and responsible. I guess not in D.C. I guess the government swamp wants to keep running like a bloated, unaccountable black hole where no one knows what the others are doing and no one gets fired no matter how useless they are. I hope that Elon Musk and Donald Trump use her as a Doge poster child. I hope they terminate her immediately. And I hate for anyone to lose their job. But you tell me, does she not deserve to lose her job? I mean, it's one thing to defy the order, but I think I would just do it quietly. I think I would have just said, okay, I'm not going to respond to this email and see who recognizes that I don't, rather than going on CNN and trying to make headlines. I mean, this isn't about privacy. It's not about integrity like Ms. Snyder claims. This is about a bunch of entitled government employees who are terrified that the Trump administration is finally forcing them to actually work for a living. You got to really go into the office now. You can't stay at home in your pajamas. And you know who else is panicking? The unions. The unions are having a heyday. They're rushing to tell government workers to ignore the directive, to refuse to comply. Why? Because the unions and the Democrats, they know exactly what's going to happen if DOGE actually uncovers how much waste, fraud, and laziness is happening in our federal agencies. It's real simple. They're frightened because they know they can't justify their jobs. They know that they can't make the American people understand that we need to keep sending them a check even though they really aren't doing anything. They're staying at home. They're not going to their office. Well, let me tell you, Elon Musk is 100% right. He said the bar is very low when it comes to productivity in government. He's right. The bar is low, and if they can't meet that bar, they're in trouble. And Musk is right. If they can't even meet the lowest level of a inefficient government, we don't need to be paying them. Here's the best part. Snyder says, I just want to get back to doing my job. Well, lady, if you're actually doing your job, you wouldn't have a problem telling the American people, and especially your supervisors, what you did last week. And this is why the American people spoke very loudly last November. We don't want any more bloated government. We don't want more unaccountable bureaucrats like this lady. We don't want more taxpayer-funded waste. If these government workers don't like being held accountable, maybe they shouldn't be working in the government. It's just that simple. You agree? Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. It appears Massachusetts is really getting an attitude adjustment. Senator Ted Cruz is issuing a subpoena to the Massachusetts Port Authority for documents related to the scandal at Boston Logan International Airport, where illegal migrants were being housed in a federally funded airport terminal. Remember this story? We saw vivid images coming out of Boston. An American airport turned into a taxpayer-funded migrant shelter is what it amounts to. So let's break this down. Logan Airport received FAA grants, meaning that its facilities must be open for public use, not turned into a makeshift migrant encampment. That's number one. Number two, illegal migrants were sleeping in Terminal E, overwhelming airport resources and creating a massive security nightmare. Number three, Massport refused to comply with the Senate Commerce Committee's request for information, stonewalling lawmakers for over a year. Well, Ted Cruz says time's up. Ted Cruz isn't taking no for an answer. He's demanding records on how many illegal migrants were actually housed at Logan, details on how much taxpayer money was wasted, information on security incidents involving the illegals while they were at the airport. All communications between Massport, government agencies, and nonprofits who were part of this disaster, because the trend that we have seen is that nonprofits have played a big role in this. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris love these non-government organizations. They love these nonprofits who are stepping in, literally in some cases being created overnight, like we saw with Stacey Abrams, that thank goodness Elon Musk and his group found that real quick and they put a stop to it. The story there, we talked about it last week. Stacey Abrams had set up a nonprofit when in just a matter of months was approved for a $1 billion plus grant. And it doesn't take a whole lot of investigation to see that Stacey Abrams' organization was set up just to receive the grant and didn't have any experts working for the organization who had any history in that sector. Stacey Abrams certainly didn't. The only history Stacey Abrams has is fleecing the government's funds. Now, this goes deeper, though, than just Boston and these nonprofits. We've seen this in Chicago. We've seen it in New York, in other big cities around the country, Denver, Los Angeles. Sanctuary cities collapsing under their own policies while Democrats whine about capacity instead of fixing the border and keeping the people from coming in to begin with. How many times did we watch the network news over the past the 4 years of Joe Biden, and you hear some of the officials at Chicago, for example, when they got really upset because Texas was busing the illegals to Chicago, to the Windy City. Let me remind you, Donald Trump has already reversed Biden's border madness. Illegal border crossings have plummeted thanks to Donald Trump in just a month. Interior arrests are skyrocketing as ICE finally cracks down on sanctuary cities, and they're going in whether the cities cooperate or not. The military has been deployed to the border as well, showing that America means business again. If you risk coming into our country, if you risk crawling over that fence, if you risk swimming the Rio Grande, our military is going to be there to greet you. And it's not a welcoming greeting. And this is why the left is panicking, because they can't hide from the disaster they created. When they were doing all of this, they had no idea that someone was going to be coming behind them and going through their lingerie drawer, so to speak. Now, Massport and the Biden officials behind this mess, they're going to have to answer. They can no longer ignore the fact that they violated FAA rules to allow those illegals to literally live in an airport terminal, and that they betrayed the American taxpayer at the same time. Simply because Donald Trump and his administration is bringing law and order back. Ted Cruz and other GOP senators are demanding accountability, as they should. And sanctuary cities will no longer get a free pass, get out of jail free card. This is the American First movement. America first, always and forever. Donald Trump made it very clear. And Tom Homan, Kristi Noem, Kash Patel now with the FBI, and boy, talk about, and Dan Bongino joining that team as well. They're in this to make a difference and to shut this nonsense down. And I would say that if you're here illegally, then you need to be coming up with Plan B and thinking about how you can get back before we give you a free trip back that's going to be very uncomfortable.
Your comments are welcome on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Firmin Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Firmin Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Firmin Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Firmin, Matthew Firmin. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Firmin Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Firmin Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Firmin Ford online at firminford.com, firminford.com.
I've been behind a little on text messages. We've just had so much breaking news, and last week was just a busy week. It looks like this week's going to be the same. But I want to share with you some text messages because I appreciate them. Keep them coming. Keep those emails coming, joey@joeyhudson.com. Of course, you can leave a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. I love to get your voice messages. Always use promo code Joey when you go to mypillow.com. We were talking earlier, and I've talked to you several times over the past week about the potential $5,000 Doge dividend check that's been floated by Elon Musk and President Trump. Many of you have responded via text, via email. I got some messages. Let me share a few of those. Phil says, no. Savings from Doge must go to reduce federal deficit and our debt. More cash in the economy only increases inflation. Musk should know this. Texter, I have an unpopular opinion on this, but I don't want a stimulus check or a Doge dividend check, whatever they're calling it. Our nation still has outrageous debt. Apply to the debt. Get our spending under control, then cut and adjust my taxes accordingly. I don't want a $5,000 to $8,000 check. I want a permanent tax reduction. Tyler from Dacusville. Thank you, Tyler. And I got others pretty much saying the same thing. You don't want a short-term check. You want long-term gains. You want our taxes reduced and eliminated in some cases. Ray says, good day, Joey. I see that Senator McConnell is going away. None too soon. We need to remember that he's married to a Chinese and that that's where his money comes from. Look at his voting record and you'll see that it always favors China. So good riddance. Now if we can only get rid of Lady Graham, who is once again going against President Trump on the budget. I'm so proud of Tim Scott and so ashamed of Graham. Ray says, come on, South Carolina. Let's show the nation that we are America first. Thanks, Joey, for your voice for freedom. Thank you, Ray. Appreciate your comment. Ginger says, Joey, are you seeing the Facebook post from Forest City workers saying I was fired from my dream job today? I've seen several. All that all seem to say about the same thing. Yeah, you're right, Ginger, they do. She says, I'm all for cutting out necessary jobs and wasteful spending, so I wonder if these posts are legit or are they created to undermine Trump's agenda. I hate to see people lose their jobs if they're doing good and necessary work. Your thoughts? Ginger, I've seen those same ads too, primarily on Facebook. And you're right, they are very much alike, and you're right too. I think they're setups. I think these people probably are being the pawns of some of the leftist unions who represent them, and they're trying to play on the generosity of Americans. Here's the bottom line on what we're going to see in this coming year. You can't cut federal spending and keep the federal bureaucracy at the level it is now, which means federal employees. A lot of people are going to have to lose their jobs and go into private industry where there are many jobs and probably pay as well, but they're going to expect you to do your job. They're going to expect you to reply to their email when they ask you, what did you do last week? So, Ginger, I'm with you. I hate for anyone to lose their job, but we have to understand that a lot of people who work for the federal government shouldn't be working there. And this first round of layoffs have been for people who are probationary type employees, meaning that they're not full-fledged federal employees yet. They're working on kind of like BMW does. If you know anything about BMW in the upstate of South Carolina, you don't go to work for BMW overnight. You start working through one of the temporary workers programs, through one of those agencies. If you do your job, you prove yourself, then you can become a full-time BMW employee. That's what these probationary positions are with the federal government as well, meaning that you got to prove that you can do the job first. Then you can get almost a no-cut job with the federal government. But there's going to be more of these stories just like the ones we've seen, because they're not going to go away. They're not going to tuck tail and run the other way. They're going to fight because it's their jobs. Texter, what a glorious day. Joey Reid is out. See, this is what happens when you lose money from hate speech from the media. Look, again, I hate to see anybody lose their jobs. Joey Reid deserves every bit of it. Hey, if you thought Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency was shaking up Washington before, just wait. They're now going after one of the biggest agencies of all, the Pentagon, our defense industry. And let me tell you, this is going to get quite interesting. Steve Simone is a former Department of Defense insider, just confirmed what we have known and suspected for many years. The Pentagon is drowning in waste, fraud, and abuse. Here's the story. He says that the Pentagon has paid $10,000 for HDMI cables. These are the cables that you use like for your cable box that you connect to your TV. You heard me right. $10,000, he says, the Pentagon pays for HDMI cables. Something you can buy at Best Buy for $20 or $30. The government, according to him, and he worked there, paid $10,000. Billions of taxpayer dollars flushed away on outdated systems in the Pentagon, useless contracts in the Pentagon, and bureaucratic black holes. Now, I'm willing and expect our Congress to fund our defense. Whatever we need, whatever the Pentagon says we need to keep us safe, I'm good with that. But we all know that there's some real bureaucratic black holes there. An $800 million budget that's packed with wasteful spending that doesn't do anything for our safety. And who's leading the charge to fix this, of course? Doge and Elon Musk. Now, this is going to be probably one of the biggest fights he faces, because everybody's going to be screaming, oh, it's our national security, our defense. Well, DOGE just held its first major meeting with the Department of Defense, and the bureaucrats in Washington are in full panic mode over there, too. According to Simone, shockwaves are ripping through the Pentagon right now because the first time in decades someone is actually holding them accountable, too. Here's where it gets even more important. Simone isn't just talking about cutting costs. He's talking about redirecting that wasted money into actually modernizing our military. Because the real threat we're facing, China, is dominating the battlefield of the future with drones, for example. 90% of the world's drones are made in China. There aren't just toys anymore, they're weapons of war. And while China's building up its drone warfare capabilities, our government is out here wasting billions on overpriced HDMI cables and bloated contracts to those longtime Pentagon contractors. Those good old boy relationships. Folks, this is why Trump put DOGE in charge to finally clean up this mess. And again, there's going to be some pain there. Let's be clear. This isn't about cutting national security. This is not about weakening our national defense. This is about making sure every dollar actually goes towards defending America, not lining the pockets of defense contractors and Democrat bureaucrats. Trump means business. Elon Musk means business. DOGE is already auditing Fort Knox. Have you seen the meme circulating where you have the guy saying, oh, I need more time, and he literally has bricks that he's spray painting gold before Elon Musk shows up at Fort Knox? It's going to get interesting. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Firmin Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.